he just starts talking about video games, and it's very funny. And it's another part where you kind of perked up when we watched it, so I'm gonna play it. And it has a similar type of
Our fundamental delusion today is not to believe in what is only a fiction, to take fictions too seriously. It's on the contrary, not to take fictions seriously enough. You think it's just the game, it's a reality. It's more real than it appears to you. For example, people who play video games, they adopt a screen persona of a sadist, rapist, whatever. The idea is, in reality, I'm a weak person, so in order to supplement my real life weakness, I adopt their false image of a strong, sexually promiscuous person, and so on and so on. But so this would be the naive reading. I want to appear stronger, more active, because in real life I'm a weak person. But what if we read it in the opposite way? That this strong, brutal, rapist, whatever identity is my true self, in the sense that this is the psychic truth of myself. And that in real life, because of social constraints and so on, I am not able to enact it. So that precisely because I think it's only a game, it's only a persona, a self-image I adopt in virtual space, I can be there much more truthful. I can enact there an identity which is much closer to my true self.
Okay, I have two very specific thoughts about this. One, it's 2006. He's obviously talking about GTA.
that's what I thought, right?
Yeah, that's what he's talking about news stories that he saw about GTA. Two, there's a much more prescient example of exactly what he's talking about that explores this very question from a Freudian psychoanalytic perspective. And it is an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation that introduces the character Reginald Barclay for the first time. Reginald Barclay, Stephen, you don't know this, but is a nerdy holodeck worker. He's like a tech guy on the holodecks, and he secretly makes this holodeck program where everyone loves him and all the ladies love him, and he saves the day and shit. And then, like, people discover this holodeck program, which they're in, and they're like, dude, what the fuck? That's weird. And then, like, the rest of the episode is he's in therapy sessions with Deanna Troy where they're, like, exploring why he's doing this. And it's a whole fucking thing, and he has, quote, holodeck addiction, and it's a whole thing. He becomes a later recurring character, but yeah, that's his, like, introductory point. Speaks to what Zizek is saying better than what he thinks is in GTA 3.
Yeah, it's like he's got me at the first half. I like the reality is more real when we project ourselves into some other persona. But then his example of the video game is so far removed from experiences
Yeah, I mean,
I've had with video games.
I think it might even be more appropriate with later video games that are more immersive and online and stuff. But, I mean, you know, there's something to be said about, you know, if you're a racist in a chat room, is that you play acting as a racist because there's no consequences, or is that you being your real self when there's no consequences and you are actually a racist? I mean, that's basically the question.
It's a valid question.
Yeah.
I just thought it was weird paired up with
Yeah. No, it's so sexy. Those fucking news stories were going on all the time.
Yeah, and this is going back to the wokeness is here to stay kind of thing. He does this social critique by cursory, half-read news articles where he uses it to supplement his own argument
Right.
in order to then make a larger social critique. And because he uses those examples, his social critique comes off as unbalanced, not researched at all, and out of left field, and makes a lot of people angry at him, which may or may not be the point, but it's also like,
I mean, unless he's talking about Kung Fu Panda, because no one gives a shit about Kung Fu Panda, which is why we like it when he talks about Kung Fu Panda.
Well, and this gets to like Zizek more broadly. I think one of his successes at staying relevant is his identification of things that are controversial and will get people mad at him.
Yeah. And I mean, he says it in one of the last two movies we saw in the last episode where he's like, the provocative is the point and it's the only way it works.
But at the same time, it kind of undermines his audience and alienates his audience at the same time, which might be his point as well. It's kind of that double-edged sword of him staying in the news and relevant, and people always love someone who's being hostile.
I would love to watch that Reginald Barkley episode with him and have him go, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we can all play act our fantasies of what we'd want to watch.
That's my real self,
with,
Steven.
Things with Zizek.
Yeah, me watching movies with Zizek is my actual true self.
But you're not actually doing it. That is the fantasy.
But because the fantasy is... Look, I've seen enough of these movies. The fantasy is the real thing, I think. It's the object petite.
No, it's the thing that you're adding on to reality. So you can watch the episode...
But the fantasy is ingrained in reality. The reality is not... like reality altered by the fantasy, but is the fantasy itself. Steven, haven't you watched any Zizek? It's like literally what he's been saying this whole time, sort of, I assume. Therefore, my real, true, authentic self is watching movies with Slavoj Zizek. Yeah.
Now I'm just imagining you with a hologram version of Zizek next to you, beaming in. He was in one of those movies as a hologram version.
Yeah.